Magandang araw, ako na naman po si Guita Gopalan from Colayco Foundation, bringing you today's Seminar School Plus. Today, we'll talk about ano ba ang investing? Ano ba yung mga principles para ang investing natin o yung pagpapalago natin for long term magiging maganda at masaya at maganda rin ang paglalago ng ating pera. So today, we will be talking about investability, lifelong investing principles, and investment planning. Ito pong mga important information na to ay yung mga kailangan ho nating naiintindihan bago pa man tayo magpalago. Bakit ito mahalaga? Well, because of the realities of investing. If you have no goal, no strategy, and no plan, nagiging mahirap po yung investing natin. Usually, tumataya tayo dun sa mga instrumento na hindi naman bagay sa atin. Meron ding mga panahon na pag wala ho tayong tamang kaalaman, tamang pag-aayos ng ating finances or ating ng pinansya, nagkakaroon ng panahon na merong mga emergencies at kailangan natin maging i-prioritize yung mga gastusin sa mga emergency over our investing. So, pag ganun ho yung kalakaran, lalagay ho sa alanganin yung ating investments because it will never be able to grow what we needed to grow, what we wanted to grow because nadidiskarel ng mga emergency spendings. There's also the usual inability or failure to understand the risks. Lahat po kasi ng papapalago ay mayroong kalakip na risko. There is a certain level of uncertainty o hindi mo pag-alam kung ano yung mangyayari pag nag-i-invest po tayo sa kahit anong investment instrument. Short-term thinking is also another culprit why many people have difficulty in investing. Masyadong nagmamadali. Kailangan ngayon na, kailangan bukas na. But in effective investing, takes time. It takes time to grow your money. And if you don't leave your money alone for it to grow, then it will never grow. Then lastly, mismatched instruments. Marami po dyan gusto magpalago, naiintindihan naman yung mga produkto, pero hindi nare-realize na bagamat maganda at lehitimo yung mga produktong to, hindi naman swak dun sa pangangailangan nila. So, these are the things that we want to address. And most importantly, yung mga nabi-victimize ng scam. Ultimately, the best investment for you that we believe in Colayco Foundation is the one which will help you achieve your goals. The best investment is what will help you achieve your goals. What is investing? Basically, it's committing to use money and expecting it to make more money based on a long-term goal. This is our definition at Colayco Foundation. Napakahalaga po na merong long-term goal na involved. Merong specific na purpose kung bakit ka nag-i-invest. Why? Because with a specific purpose, it becomes easier to identify saan ka ba mag-i-invest. Magkano ba yung kailangan mo ilagay? Gaano katagal mo ba kailangan na ilagak yung pera mo? At anong gagawin mo pag nagkaroon ng hindi inaasahang bagay or changes in your investing? No? Paano kung yung stock market bumagsak? Paano kung yung stock market lumago? Anong gagawin mo? It's easier to do all those things, to respond to what's going on in the economy, in the capital markets, and even in your own life if you have a plan. No? The secret ultimately to successful investing is not following the right predictions. Nobody can tell you that these investments are guaranteed or sure. There's no such thing as a guaranteed investment na walang talo, walang possibility of talo. There are always risks. And in managing those risks, we have to follow the investability principle, which is follow the right rules and not the right predictions. Even the best, pinaka-best na fund managers, economists, etc., wala po silang gift na kaya nilang sabihin na ito yung mangyayari for sure 100%. They're only making educated guesses about what will happen. Now, life's financial roadmap calls for 6 different activities. The first is building our wealth, keeping more of what we earn, and then doing more with what we keep. No? Second is protecting what we grow. dapat yung pinalago natin manatiling nasa atin. We are able to keep our wealth. And that is done by also being prudent, wise spending, and practical investing. We should also assess and address the risks of investing, managing the risks, mitigating the risks, transferring the risks of investing. And to do that, we need to have vigilance and information. We need to know and understand the implications of what is going on. And then lastly, alam niyo ho, ang wealth po is not only for ourselves. Nagpapalago ho tayo para sa ating mga mahal sa buhay, para sa ating komunidad. So, we share our wealth with those we love. Because you cannot share what you don't have. And that's ultimately our main obligation to ourselves. We want to be wealthy because if we are not wealthy, then there's nothing for us to share, at least financially. Let me introduce you now to what is called as the investment management cycle. There are four steps in the investment management cycle. And this is a cycle that applies to your whole investing life. No? So ultimately, from this point on, hanggang sa pumanaw na tayo. The first step is to define your investment objectives. I-identify po natin ano ba talaga. Second, understand your appetite for risk. We need to know who we are, where we are in our investing. Ano ba yung mga peligro na kaya natin tanggapin, kaya nating i-manage, kaya nating ilipat sa iba. Kailangan alam po natin yan. Third, building our investment portfolio. Pag alam na natin kung ano yung goals natin, ano yung kaya nating tanggapin in terms of risks, then we can match those with specific investment instruments that are available. At marami po yan. Yan po ang magandang kwento. Marami po yan. So, in building our investment portfolio, we should have a diversified portfolio that covers all our various investment objectives as well as our various appetite for risk, yung kaya nating tanggapin. And then lastly, after you've built your portfolio, you should manage it. Hindi ho nakalaga ka na ng isang beses sa isang investment, tapos na. Building wealth, investing is a lifelong activity. Hindi po siya natatapos sa isang paglalagay lamang ng pera. And then after which, we redefine our investment objectives. So ito po ay isang cycle na patuloy po nating ginagawa, patuloy nating tinitingnan, dahil patuloy rin pong nagbabago ang mundo, nagbabago yung buhay natin. So this is something we recommend you assess on a quarterly basis at the most, and maybe at the least on a yearly basis. Let's start first with defining your investment objectives. First, you have to understand, ano ba yung gusto mo? Ano ba yung hinahanap mo? You have to know the what and why. Now, there are three general investment objectives. Yung tinatawag po na capital growth, regular income, and capital preservation. Capital growth, ito po yung objective natin na gusto natin ng significant na pagpapalago. Gusto natin tumaas yung halaga ng ating pera. No? In a significant way. Ibig sabihin, malaki. No? The second is regular income. Sa regular income naman, mas hinahanap natin yung regular na may pumapasok sa atin, imbis na one-time, big time. Yung capital growth po kasi parang one-time, big time po siya. Whereas regular growth, merong pong schedule na sinusundan kung kailan darating yung pera. And then lastly, capital preservation. Ano ibig sabihin po nito? This means that kung ano yung value ng pera natin ngayon, kung ano yung kaya niyang bilhin, in the future, kaya pa rin niyang bilhin. We want to be able to preserve the power of our money today and the power of it in the future. Why is that a need? No? The first is because of inflation. Ang mga presyo po ng mga bilihin ay tumataas. So pag hindi po lumalago yung pera natin at the same rate as inflation, tayo po yung nalulugi. So we want to preserve our capital. Now, these three objectives, sa totoo lang, pwede rin naman pong mixed. You can have capital growth and regular income, capital growth and capital preservation and regular income. Pwede po yan magkakasama. No? Pwede rin pong yung tatlo. So, important here is for you to identify nasan ka ba dyan sa tatlo o ano dyan sa tatlo yung pinakamahalaga sa'yo for certain parts of your life. You also need to know how much. You have to quantify your investment objectives in very financial terms. Ano ibig sabihin? Magkano ba yung kailangan mo? Specifically, yun, basta kailangan ko ng pera. Hindi po papatok yun. Kailangan specific amount. Kailangan ko ng 565,000. Kailangan ko ng 325 pesos. Magkano? No? Also, ano ba yung required mo na rate of return? O magkano ba yung inaasahan mong balik ng pera para makuha mo kung ano yung objective mo? 5% ba yan? 10%? 15%? 20%? A total of 30%? Ano? Ano yon? And then lastly, what is your loss tolerance? Hanggang saan ka willing na kung matalo, hanggang dito lang ako magpapatalo. No? Ang pagkalugi po kasi ay hindi nag-uumpisa sa zero. Nag-uumpisa po yan sa paisa-isang lugi. Tapos, hanggang sa umabot ka na lang ng zero. So, a loss of 10% is much easier to gain back than a loss of 70%. So this is why it's important to identify ano naman yung loss tolerance natin. Third, you have to identify also when you need your funds. Alamin kung kailan mo kailangan yung pera. Situate your financial objectives in time and identify liquidity needs. So for example, hindi po ako mag-i-invest today ng kailangan ko for next year's tuition. Kasi kung in-invest ko po yan at ang kailangan ko na investment 3 taon daw para magpalago, di kakapusin ako for next year. So you need to take a look at these things. Important that we take a look at in defining our investment objectives, this tool called PTT, or defining our purpose, target, and timeline. Purpose is basically what it is, no? Pang-edukasyon ba yan ng iyong anak? At dahil pang-edukasyon siya 10 years from now, you need capital growth for it. At magkano? Target, no? That's the second T, no? Target. Magkano ba yung kailangan mo? Kasi pang edukasyon siya, kailangan ko ng 30,000 for 5 years from now, etc. Timeline, how long, no? So in this our example, 5 years from now. So kailangan clear. What is the purpose, what is the target, and what is the timeline? Let's take this as an example. Gusto mo ba ng 1 million? Siguro naman, no? Gusto mo ng 1 million. Well, sa 1 million, if you know your purpose, target, and timeline, maaring gamitin mo yan para sa pagbabakasyon, para sa college education, down payment sa bahay, whatever, no? If you know your target and timeline, everything will be simpler, no? So, example po na to, how much should we invest per month to accumulate 1 million in 10, 20, or 30 years? If you are able to save the following amounts, over a period of 10 to 20 years, makukuha mo yung 1 million. So, at 8% na paglalago ng pera natin, kailangan lang natin 5,550 pesos for 10 years. Para in 10 years, makuha mo yung 1 million. Whereas, kung meron naman tayong 30 years, ang kailangan na lang natin ay 710 pesos per month. Diba? 710 pesos per month, in 30 years, 1 million na po siya. Kung kaya naman po natin magpalago at a bigger amount, at a bigger rate of 12%, from 4,500 savings every month invested for 10 years, nagiging 330 naman pag 30 years na. Kung kaya pa natin taasan, lumalago yung pera natin at 15% per year, then you only need about 180 pesos per month for investing it for 30 years. So, hindi po kalakihang pera. And if today you had these amounts, kung meron po tayong lump sum today, itong mga value na to, itong nasa screen natin, pwede na po natin makuha yung ating 1 million on the times na sinabi natin. So, for example, if today you have 214,000 and you invest it in something that will give you 8%, it can grow to 1 million in 20 years. Kung sa ngayon po, as in today, meron tayong 15,000, may 15,000 tayo, in-invest natin sa instrumento yung nagpapalago sa atin ng 15%, then 30 years from now, we can have our 1 million. So imagine yung bunso natin na nakakatanggap pa ng mga aginaldo at cash gift sa mga ninong, lola at lolo, no? Pagtipon-tipon mo lang yon, ipagsama-sama mo, sigurado ho ako aabot yan ng 15,000. Yung 15,000 na yan, itabi natin sa isang investment na nagpapalago ng 15% per year. Then by the time your child is 30 or 40, meron na rin siyang 1 million. ang ganda ho sana pag ganon, mas lalo na para sa mga bata. So in investing, it should be very clear for us kung what our purpose, target, and timeline is, because that determines how much we need to save, what rate we need to invest it in, and ultimately, ano ba yung mga investment instruments na gagana para sa atin. So, ito ho, mga guide lang ho ito. Hindi naman ho ito guaranteed, walang promise. But it helps us at least identify and simplify, more importantly, simplify our investing. There are 3 baskets to look at: the protection basket, the life goals basket, and the retirement basket. And under the protection basket, ang important ho dito is ginagamit po natin itong saving and investing na to para sa mga unforeseen circumstances. No? We want to be readily available with cash if in case we need it because of emergencies. O either cash or a guarantee. Ultimately, it's for our peace of mind na hindi tayo nagsascramble, naghahalughog na naghahanap ng pera para lang mapaoperahan yung isa o kaya mailibing itong mga taon to, etc. No? So, less stress kumbaga dahil may pera kang naitabi. There are 3 things that fall under the protection basket. Yung tinatawag po nating emergency funds equivalent to 2 months worth of your income. And then, yung ating cash reserves, which is equivalent to 6 months worth of income. And lastly, yung insurance, yung tinatawag nating life and non-life. So, emergency funds and cash reserves, these are money that we have for easy access. Ang importante po dyan ay madali po siyang makuha if in case merong problema. At most, your emergency fund should be put in an ATM accessible savings account or a time deposit account for your cash reserves. It is not an investment. Ulit ko lang po. Hindi po ito pera na tinatabi natin para sa investing. This is really money that you set aside for emergencies, para sa mga hindi inaasahang bagay. Kung sakaling mawalan ka ng trabaho at kailangan mong sustentuhan yung pamilya mo, pag may cash reserves ka, meron kang enough na palugit, no? Para hindi ka nagmamadali, hindi ka naghahabol. May panahon kang humanap ng magandang trabaho kesa sa naghahabol lang ng kung anong pwedeng bigyan ka ng kita. So that's why it's very important. If you don't have emergency funds and cash reserves right now, then give yourself at least 1 year to build up your emergency funds worth 2 months of your income. And the next 3 to 5 years to set aside money for your cash reserves. That's 6 months worth of income. Yung third item in our protection basket is insurance. Insurance is not an investment, okay? Hindi po yan investment. Although marami rin hong produkto na merong balik ng pera. Yung ganun po ay medyo hybrid products na yan. Hindi na po yan pure insurance. But pure insurance is simply protection against a great financial loss. It's a financial protection, kumbaga. Anong examples ng great financial loss? One is our ability to earn income. Ultimately, because of death, nawala yung ability to earn income. But it can also be because of disability. Nawalan tayo ng limbs, no? Nabawasan tayo ng kamay, paa, o kung ano man. Meron tayong sakit na napakatagal o kaya sakit na nag-iba na yung uri ng pamumuhay natin ang dahil sa sakit natin. Or even job dismissal, especially para dun sa mga OFW natin. Pag biglang na-cancel yung kontrata nila, it is a great financial loss. At important siya because may mga umaasa sa kakayanan nating kumita. Loss of life is also a great financial loss. Pag nawala tayo, sinong magsusuporta dun sa mga mahal natin sa buhay? So, again, insurance is not an investment. It's our obligation, especially if we have dependents. Kung may umaasa sa ability natin na mag-provide para sa kanila. Mag-provide ng tubig, pagkain, bahay, edukasyon, etc. Insurance is not supposed to last forever. It's just meant to give you and your loved ones enough time to make financial adjustments and recover. So, for example, may nawala po, may pumanaw sa buhay natin, hindi naman po kailangan na forever nang may insurance na makukuha o napakalaking halaga. Kailangan lang may enough time na yung ating asawa makaareglo ng ibang paraan para madagdagan yung kita at masustentuhan kung sino yung natira. No? So, insurance is something we buy for peace of mind, for protection, for our loved ones. Hindi po tayo kadalasan ang nakaka-benefit doon, especially if dahil sa loss of life. The second basket is the life goals basket. Under the life goals basket, we have two things under that. Yung tinatawag po nating obligations and aspirations. Obligations are moral or legal commitments. Ito po yung mga responsibilidad po natin. Kung tayo po ay may children, then one of the clearest responsibilities is making sure that they are able to grow up into income-earning individuals later on. It's being able to make sure na sila ho, mabubuhay natin hanggang sa kanilang pagtanda, hanggang sa point na kaya na nilang sustentuhan ang sarili nila. So that covers the really basic things like food, shelter, clothing, and also education. So, under life goals, kadalasan ho, yung mga nilalagay po natin dito ay the education of our children, that they have some of the comforts of life, etc. You may have other obligations, depende na ho yan sa inyo. Ang life goals basket naman ho ay talagang personal decisions, personal goals that you may have. And then we have aspirations. These are things that we hope to achieve. Yung mga inaasahan po natin, pinaniniginipan po natin, yung mga pangarap po natin sa buhay. Ito po yung mga aspirasyon po natin. So financially, these are things that we want to get but not necessarily have to get at a certain time. These are things that we want. This can be travel, it can be a certain type of house and lot, pwede rin pong kotse, pwede rin pong bag, pwede rin pong gadgets, pwede rin pang pera na ipamimigay para sa mga charity na tinutulungan natin or mga community na tinutulungan natin. Kahit ano po. Really, the life goals basket is up to you. But most important to know is that if you don't start now, then you will have a difficult time meeting both your obligations and achieving your aspirations. Let me tell you a story about Jack and Jill. Si Jack and Jill po, parang dun sa kanta, twins po sila, no? Si Jack started investing at the age of 20, while si Jill started investing at the age of 40. Si Jack, dahil bata pa siya, konti lang yung kaya niyang i-invest per year, 25,000. While si Jill, nung matanda na siya at 40 years old, started investing, could rather invest already 100,000 per year. They invested for a period, respectively, kay Jack, 10 years, hanggang umabot siya ng 29, at si Jill, 25 years naman, hanggang sa umabot siya ng age of 64. Magkano suma total ang nai-invest ni Jack? Well, 250,000, while si Jill, 2.5 million naman. They both put their money in an investment that could grow it for them at 12% per year. Dahil sa 12% per year po yan, the value of their investment at age of 65 was 26 million for Jack and 15 million only for Jill. Parang nalito po tayo dun, di ba? Di ba si Jill, 2.5 million yung pinasok? Bakit 15 mil lang ang kanyang nakuha? 15 milyones ang kanyang nakuha. Well, si Jack naman, 250,000 lang ang pinasok, pero 26 million naman ang nakuha niya. Isa lang po ang nag-iba sa kwento na ito. Jack started at 20 years old while Jill started at 40 years old. Jack, all in all, had 35 years to grow his money, while si Jill, 25 years lang. That extra years, those extra years really matters a lot when investing. Time is our most precious resource. No? The longer the time, the higher the possible return, the lower the amount that you need, if you have the time. So, just starting now, starting early, mas malaki na ho yung potential ng ating pera. If we delay, nababawasan. So, yung mga hangarin po natin sa buhay, our common life goals, our aspirations, whether it's children's education, owning a house, buying a car, traveling, giving back to the community, buying jewelry, bags or baskets, gusto nyo mag-trekking, kahit ano ho, possible po. If you allow yourself and your money the time it needs to grow. Now, the last basket is all about retirement. It's all about the day in the future wherein you can no longer afford to work. So the question is, can you save enough today, the small amounts, so that pagdating ho ng 65, panahon na hindi na tatanggalin na tayo sa trabaho, i-retire na tayo, o kaya yung panahon na hindi na kaya ng katawan natin magtrabaho pa, magiging covered tayo. Hindi tayo magre-rely sa ating pamilya o sa charity para lang tayo ay masustentuhan. Just a trivia, no? Most companies are not able to retire with enough funds for their retirees. 300,000 is the average amount that are given to most employees, no? So, yung 300,000 na po na yon na ibibigay at 65, kaya ho ba nung sustentuhan yung 20 plus years ninyo na mabubuhay pa? If you live until the age of 85, then obviously 300,000 will not be enough. So we need to prepare. Pension is also not enough. Mababa po ang pension. If you are earning 20,000 today, that will not be the same value 70 years from now, 60 years from now. Ibang-iba po yun. And at the same time, yung value po na nakukuha natin, no, ngayon, hindi po yan tataas ng sobra-sobra. So, you need to supplant your pension income with your own funds. The good news is it doesn't take a lot. If you can save 33 pesos a day and invest it, that's about 1,000 pesos a month. If you can invest it in something that will give you 10% to 20% per year on average, then you have a chance to get these kinds of returns. 1,000 pesos a month invested for 10 years is an investment that will give you 10% is about 201,000. 15 years, 402, 20 years, 724, 25 years, 1.2 million, and 30 years, 2.1 million. Paano naman pag dinoble natin yung rate ng paglago ng ating pera? Then the numbers are drastically different. From 10 years, from 201 to 344. 15 years, 402 to almost double at 940. Yung 724,000 in 20 years, naging 2.5 million. Yung 1.2 in 25 years, naging 10.8. At yung 2.1 million in 30 years, naging 15.7. This is the cost of 33 pesos a day that you're saving and investing regularly. That's about 1,000 pesos a month. Kung kaya po natin gawin ito, magiging mas maginhawa yung ating investing and life pag tayo ay retirement age na. Magkano yung perang pinaghirapan mo na itinabi mo? Just 360,000. And it will give you a return between 2.1 million and 15.7 million. Very rare. Mga executives na ho ang nakakuha ng mga ganyang kalaking retirement package. So kung hindi naman po tayo aabot sa ganung level, sana ho ay paghandaan na ho natin. Now, what if you extend the period from 30 years, gawin mong 40 years? Then, the numbers are astounding. From 2.1 million, nagiging 5.6 million. From 15.7 million, nagiging 97.4 million. At magkano yung perang pinaghirapan? 420,000 lang. So, napakaliit na pinapasok, but with the power of time, you can have such big returns. Now, this is a simulation of what is possible. Wala pong guarantee dito. Very important yung 4 investment management processes na binanggit natin kanina at babalikan natin in a while. Kasi kung ginagawa po natin ang investing natin ng tama, this is possible na makuha natin, ma-enjoy natin. Not just at our retirement, but also for our life goals. Yung mga pang ngayon at pang soon na kailangan natin. Investment is following the right rules and not the right predictions. Ultimately, kung kaya nating sundan itong principle na to, malamang sa hindi, lalabas po tayo na tayo yung panalo sa pag-i-invest natin. Investment specifically are tools, no? And successful investors have a complete toolbox. Ang tools po kasi, kung familiar po kayo sa screwdriver, no? Ang tools, meron siyang specific purpose. Di po ba ang screwdriver, merong flathead, merong Phillips head? At nabalitaan ko recently, meron pang ibang klaseng mga screws ngayon. Pero yung pinaka-common, yung tinatawag na flathead at saka Phillips na parang cross, no? Yung flathead, sa totoo lang, depende kung gaano kalaki, pwede mo rin gamitin dun sa Phillips na screw. Pero mas maganda, mas effective, pag yung Phillips na screwdriver, yun yung gagamitin mo sa Phillips na screw din. That's the best best and easiest and simplest way to get a screw into the wall or into the furniture o kung ano man. So, ganun din po sa investing. Sana hanapin natin yung para sa atin, ano yung best fit, your objective and your investment instrument, which is the Phillips screw and the Phillips screwdriver na match. So, once you are doing that, it's very important to identify ano yung risk. Kasi lahat ng investment instruments may kalakip na risk. And this risk determines whether it's a match for your objective or not. Risk basically will help you identify whether you say no or yes to it. There are 4 things we should look at when assessing for risk. No. The first is yield or return, the money you expect to make. Ang yield or return should be higher than inflation. And inflation is simply the increase in prices of basic goods o yung pagtataas ng presyo ng mga pangunahing bilihin. Now, for the past 20 years, that's been between 5 to 6%. But in the last 3 years, that's between 3 to 4%. So kung yung pera natin lumalago above 5% over a period of years, then medyo nasa okay tayo in terms of yield and return. The benchmark is really to beat inflation. Because if you're just meeting inflation, kumbaga pinapantayan mo lang, hindi pa tayo nakakapagpalago nun. Hindi pa tayo nakakapagpalago nun. We are just allowing our money to be able to grow at the same pace so that we can afford we can afford tomorrow the things that we can afford today. So, it's important to define your target investment rate. We assess the return. Does it meet your target? Does it address your investment objectives? Nakakapagpalago ba siya para makapagbigay sa'yo ng capital growth, regular income, or capital preservation? Is the risk so high that you can also avoid catastrophic financial loss? Lahat naman kasi tayo, ayaw naman natin zero. No? But in investing, the reality is you will experience losses. And if you cannot accept that reality, medyo magiging mahirap po sa inyo. Sa larangan po ng pagpapalago, meron lagi pong ganansya at meron din pong pagkatalo. Ang mahalaga lang po, yung pagkatalo natin ay hindi yung pagkatalo na hindi na tayo makabangon. Yung pagkatalo lang na naapektuhan tayo, pero kaya pa natin bawiin. So we all have this negative objective of avoiding catastrophic loss, the kind of loss that we can't recover from. Questions to ask yourself, is it realistic? When investment returns are guaranteed and it's above 10%, medyo masyadong mataas na ho yun. No? Napakahirap po mag-guarantee ng 10% na balik ng pera every year. No? If there's no guarantee, however, okay lang. Between 8 to 12 to 15, even 20% average over a period of 3 to 5 years or longer. That becomes realistic. The second key to investing, the second thing that we need to assess is yung tinatawag natin na risk, the basic concept of risk, which is the possibility that you will not get what you are expecting. Important here is that you investigate before investing. No. All investments follow the same laws. All returns are risk-driven. Kung wala hong risk, wala pong potential na kita or balik ng pera. The higher the return, kung mas mataas ho yung binibigay sa inyong kita, whether it's projected or guaranteed, mas mataas rin po yung risko. But with the power of time, you also lower the risk. So the longer time that you have, the lower the risk that you can, the lower the risk that is affecting you. The longer the time you have, the lower the risk affects you. And then fourth, the longer your investment horizon, the higher the expected total return. Kung naalala niyo yung kwento ni Jack and Jill, dahil si Jack, mas mahaba yung panahon ng pagpapalago, mas malaki rin yung nakuha niyang pera at the end. So, these are economic laws that are followed. And it's very important that we understand kung ano yung impact nito sa mga risk. Kasi if we can manage the risk, then the returns will come. Lastly, one of the best way to manage risk is strategic asset allocation and diversification. Ultimately, it reduces the risks and also stabilizes return over time. Ibig sabihin ho niyan, hindi po tayo tumataya sa iisa lang. hinahati-hati natin o pinaparte-parte natin yung ating pera sa iba't ibang investment instruments. So that if yung isa hindi tumakbo dun sa gusto natin, yung possibility na lumago siya ay hindi niya na-meet o kaya nalugi siya, meron ka pang iba na tumatakbo para sa'yo. How to know if you can take low-risk investments or high-risk investments? Simply, if you have these 5 different characteristics to look at. The first is age. If you are older, 50 years old and up, then veer towards the lower risk instruments. If you are younger, 49 years old and below, you can take advantage of the high risk instruments simply because you have more time. And speaking of time, there's also what we call as investment horizon. Ito po yung timeline dun sa ating PTT. If you have a short timeline, less than 2 years, go with low risk. Whereas if you have more time, 3, 5, and even more, 10, 20 years, pwede po tayo dun sa mga higher risk instruments because time lowers the risk. Now, depending on the country's economy, kung kamusta yung bansa kung saan ka maglalagak ng pera, pwede rin tayong pumili between low and high risk. When the country is experiencing poor economic conditions, we veer towards the low risk. Whereas, kung good economic conditions naman, doon naman sa high risk. But this will really depend on your experience in investing. Kasi pag pangit yung condition sa ekonomiya, meron pong certain opportunities na nangyayari in terms of investing. That maybe are open only to those that can take higher risks in investing. Whereas in good economic conditions, while high-risk instruments are available, you have another type of instrument that is also has a specific opportunity. So depending on your experience in investing, if you have less experience, less knowledge, then go for the more lower risk. While if you have more experience and more knowledge, go to the higher risk. And then lastly, yung personal level of comfort with uncertainty. Wala nga pong guarantee dito. Wala pong sure thing. We have to accept the fact that things can go either way. Pwede po tayong manalo, pwede rin po tayong matalo. If you cannot take a huge level of uncertainty, hindi mo ma-take na hindi ka sure, dun ka na lang sa low risk. Kaysa sa ma-heart attack ka pa. But if you can accept it, if you can accept na 50-50 yan lagi, dun ka naman sa high risk. Merong mga opportunities din doon. Be realistic about your own risk tolerance because ikaw lang ang makakapagdikta nun. The worst thing that will happen is if you invest in something that is high risk and yun pala, pang low risk yung personality natin, kaya natin. Pag gano'n ang nangyari, pag tumaas o bumaba ang stock market o kung ano man yung ini-investan mo, kayo ang mamumroblema. So much better to be realistic about your own risk tolerance because there is always an investment that matches you anyway. Lastly, yung tinatawag na liquidity. How easy or fast can you turn your investment into cash? Liquidity is really a process, Yung investment na meron ka, whether that is a government bond, a savings account, a stock from the stock market, all of this can be turned back into cash. There is a specific process that you need to make sure that you know. What is the downside also if you need it quickly? Kadalasan po kasi is pag nagmamadali tayo, kailangan natin mag-accept ng certain losses. Kung nagmamadali tayo dahil sa emergency, kailangan natin yung pera, malamang sa hindi, may konting losses o kaya penalties tayong kailangan bayaran. Especially for things like government bonds, government securities, iba-iba ho yan. Or kahit dun sa mga stocks, depende dun sa kalagayan ng ekonomiya at that time. Invest ultimately in instruments that match you. Instruments that you understand. Risk, there is low risk, medium risk, and high risk instruments. One of those, many of those, will match your specific profile. Once you have assessed your appetite for risk based on your objectives, then you can look at now starting to build your portfolio, looking at various instruments that you can take advantage of to really grow your wealth na magpalago. Now, there are two fundamental money transactions, yung tinatawag na money in and money out. Sa money out, dalawa lang ho yan. Yung tinatawag nating buy and lend. Naglalabas tayo ng pera sa ating bulsa para bumili ng certain item o kaya para magpautang ng ibang tao. Palabas ho ang transaction na yan. Ang pera naman pumapasok sa ating bulsa dahil may binenta tayo o kaya may kinolekta tayo. So, because let's say, yung ating, sa mga empleyado, no, binibenta natin yung ating kakayanan, yung ating oras, yung kagalingan natin, katalinuhan natin sa ating employer at binabayaran niya tayo ng sweldo. So, that's an example of a buy and lend transaction. Whereas ang lending naman and collecting is nagpautang ka. At dahil nagpautang ka, binayaran ka ng principal, pati na rin yung interest dun sa pinautang mo. Now, buy and lend instruments are all contained in what is called as the capital markets or other markets. Simply, buy investments are called ownership investments, while lend investments are called lending investments. Ano ba ang mga specific natures nitong dalawang klase ng investment na to? Pag goals po, sa buy investments, ang ultimate na gusto nating mangyari is magkaroon ng capital growth or pagpapalago. Ang benefit na nakukuha natin ay gain. It's usually not fixed, not guaranteed, and not insured. At ang objective dito is tayo ay makapagbili sa mababang halaga at maibenta natin ito sa mas mataas na halaga. You can expect between 10 to 20% average annual return. Pero may risk ko nga po, the risk that the value may decline. Usually, this is based on price. There's a certain price that you want to buy para mababa and a certain price that you want to sell so that you can earn money. While on the lending type of investment naman, ang objective natin ay yung regular income or kita. The benefit is called interest. Most of the time, it's fixed, it's guaranteed, and it's sometimes insured. Examples po nito yung sa mga savings natin sa mga bangko, savings account, time deposit, no? These are lend type of investments. The process here is to lend and collect. And you can expect between 1 to 7 or even 8% per year na return from this type of investment. Ano naman ang risk? Well, the risk is that the borrower may default. O simple, hindi ka bayaran para sa pinag-utang mo. Now, the following are investment instruments that are available in the Philippines that are accessible for individual investors like you and me. Una is yung cash. Simply, cash is investments that are in deposits or deposit substitutes. Ano ibig sabihin nito? Ito ho yung mga nilalagay natin sa bangko. Savings account, high yield savings account, time deposit, o nung available pa siya, yung mga special deposit accounts. There is also fixed income. Ito ho ay yung mga pautang ng gobyerno at ng meron din pong fixed income. Ito ho yung mga pautang ng gobyerno in the form of government bonds and government securities and also of corporations. These are debt obligations. Umuutang sila from us. It's usually tradable. Ano ibig sabihin yan? Meron din hong market o merkado like the Philippine stock market that wherein these instruments are bought and sold. It's called the Philippine Dealing System. Mas mataas ho ang pwede niyang ibigay na balik ng pera kaysa sa doon sa deposits. Now, what is the risk? Baka hindi ka bayaran. The risk that maybe companies will not be able to pay you. But in terms of government securities, yung mga pautang sa gobyerno, yan po yung pinaka-low risk, in fact, risk-free because the government will always pay. Now, there's also what is called as the price risk. Paano kung hindi mo hawakan yung utang or i-terminate mo ng maaga yung iyong pinautang doon sa gobyerno o doon sa kumpanya, maaring ang balik ng pera sa iyo ay subject to certain conditions and market prices. There's also what is called as the reinvestment risk, na yung pera na nakuha mo, na kinita mo, at yung ininvest mo, pag nilagay mo sa ibang investment, ay maaring hindi lumago at the same rate or same price. Those are two types, general types of lending investments. Then, for the ownership investments, you have what is called as equities. Ito ho ay yung certificates of ownership in corporations. These are shares of stock in companies. Now, these have higher potential earnings in the long term compared to fixed income. Mas malaki po yung potential ng kita dito. Pero, ganun din ho, mas malaki rin ang risk exposure. There are many different types of equities. There are private and public. There are also common and preferred shares. So, these these types are accessible through the Philippine Stock Exchange. You need a broker to be able to access these types of investment instruments. You also have real estate. Real estate, ito po, lupa, property, no? Very familiar po tayo. It can be in the form of direct real estate and indirect real estate. Sa Pilipinas po, kahit sinong Pilipino pwedeng magmay-ari ng lupa or property. There is also an instrument called the Real Estate Investment Trust. No? It is a specific share of ownership of a real estate project. Ito ho ay mga available ho, not at the moment, but available coming soon through the Philippine Stock Exchange. It is an indirect form of real estate investment. It's a very good option for us to diversify our portfolio para marami po tayong ibang klaseng investment doon sa ating kumbaga, bag or toolbox of investment instruments. But there are exposures to certain market and liquidity risk. As you know, siguro naman na-experience nyo na o na-observe nyo na, medyo mahirap po makabenta ng lupa. No? Medyo matagal. It takes some time. And also, prices go up and down as well. Especially kung may mga lugar o kung saan ka merong property, merong kaguluhan o kaya nagkaroon ng calamity sa area, no? Hindi ganun kabilis at dali ibenta yung mga property na yon. And lastly, yung tinatawag na derivatives. Derivatives are simply investments which are based on other investments. Mutual funds are an example of these kinds of investment. Kung saan it's built on something else. So sa mutual fund and other pooled funds, it's built on the stock market and the debt market. So just a list of specific instruments. Under ownership investments, you can look at stocks, no? Equities, common and preferred stocks, pooled funds like mutual funds, UITFs, insurance-linked funds, foreign currency, business, real estate, things called as warrants, PDRs, and commodities are also available under the ownership investment category. While sa lending investment naman, meron naman hong debt market, yung kung saan ho ang mga pautang ng gobyerno, pautang ng companies, bank savings and time deposit accounts, pension and insurance, and other loan type of products. So this is the Philippine investment universe. And these are the things that are available to us when investing. But on our own, napakahirap po na gawin po itong building our investment portfolio because it needs a lot of funds to be able to adequately diversify. Para ma-manage po natin yung risk natin ng tama, kailangan natin ng malaking pera para pwede natin ihati-hati dito sa mga iba't ibang investment na nabanggit ko. Kaya kami po sa Colayco Foundation, we believe in the power of one, the power of pulling people together na pagsama-sama, mas malaki ang pwedeng mangyari. Yung co-op po namin, just to give you an example, mga simple po na mga OFWs, primarily from Hong Kong and now from all over the world, dahil nagsama-sama, malaki na at malayo na ang nararating. No? Over 2,000 of them have now owned a franchise of a big major food chain, a rural bank in Cavite City. They're putting up their own hotel. They have a professional services company, etc. Pero maliit lang yung pera na pinasok. They help us in building one wealthy nation, our community of Filipinos that are committed to becoming wealthy, wherein we put together ano yung mga kailangan natin para sabay-sabay din po tayo magpalago. Ano yung mga products, information that when we merge together, marry together, may patutunguhan. So, samahan niyo po kami sa One Wealthy Nation, sabay-sabay po tayong magpalago, sabay-sabay po tayong matuto. So, thank you very much. This has been Guita Gopalan of Colayco Foundation, and I hope you visit us at our websites www.onewealthynation.com and get in touch with us at info@onewealthynation.com for more information about growing your wealth, learning about all these different investment opportunities, and really taking the step towards becoming wealthy.